Happy Thanksgiving. In the previous video, I was talking about what would happen if the theory I write about the segmented aspects in my book, Multidimensional. What would happen if it was true? What should you learn from that? How should you react to that? And I was basically arguing that you should not interpret this as if giving you a green light to commit suicide because experiences fundamental will continue to exist. So why care about your life? And because like all the other stuff, I explained why that's not a valid conclusion from the theory. But so that's like one example of a case where you weren't planning to to commit suicide, and after learning the theory, you might have decided to change your behavior and say no. There's no. It doesn't justify. It doesn't justify it, and it's important that you watch it. But let's say that you did and it compelled you. Okay, next. This isn't the only way this works. There's also the other way, which is there are things that you are doing right now, and if the theory is true, well, you might want to reconsider. And there are many things like that, but I'm going to talk about one such thing specific. So in yet another previous video, I was explaining how the architecture of the brain, the fact that it uses neural networks that are constructs in the same physical space that experience perceives, suggests that the body needs experience to change the brain, to change its cognitive functions. That experience actually depends on the intelligence that is innate to experience. That it's not just the brain. You should watch that video to understand what I mean. And in general, if experience is fundamental, and if it has, as I argued, it is not bound by the laws of nature, but it is, therefore, if it does something, then it is supernatural. And if experience is supernatural, then clearly that gives like an incentive for natural selection to try to integrate its supernatural capacities into its survival equilibrium, to use it to ensure that the body persists, not because it wants to, but because that's what makes persistent bodies, like bodies that use all the advantages they can get to survive. So looking at the brain, it looks like the body needs the body space. The body needs experience for cognitive stuff. But the thing is, the brain isn't. It's not like it's not like a special part of perception. Like it's not like your brain is somehow takes a special part in your perception. Taking the video game metaphor again as to explain this. If you had the brain in a video game and you saw the brain of the character, you know that the actual physics engine, the actual machine, the computer, the body that produces that game, that the perception of that game, is much. It's the same body that produces everything else. The same that produces every corner of the universe you perceive. So it would be strange if the only thing that experience affects is cognitive processes. And indeed, that's not the case. If you consider placebos and nocebos, like the fact that specific experiential movements, specific thoughts make people feel better or worse and have actual measurable markers, like show that they have like better or worse health because of experiential stuff, that shows that experience does more than that. But the question is, where does it end? Because again, it's the same body that produces every corner of the universe in your perception. So why assume that it only affects the brain and the body? Why? Because it's close to the brain. It should affect every corner of the universe insofar as it can. I mean, of course, there's a limitation because this concoction that it produces has to undergo reconciliations with other experiential agents, and their reconciliation would mean that only so much can change because they will always push to reality to like a common denominator. But still, the question is how far does it go? Now, so I was talking about biology, I was talking about psychology, or what you want to call cognitive processes, but what about beyond that? So clearly it has like, by extension of biological and cognitive capacities, it affects social dynamics, obviously, but beyond that, something that is like affecting the physical substrate, not just the social substrate. So, like I was mentioning before, like the possibility that all the bad stuff that happens, like for example, I wouldn't know, but stuff like climate change and environmental catastrophes, all that stuff. Clearly, there's a reason why it happens, but you know for a fact that you can dream of realities where that problem doesn't exist. The same as if you are blind, if you lost your sight, you can dream, in your dreams you can still see. You can fix all the problems that, like, you can drift to a different reality. Your experience can drift to a different reality where all these problems are solved. The only issue is that you wanted to solve it in the wakeful union, in the shared reality of everyone else. Now, the way that we have been trying to solve these problems is through science. We try to analyze the wakeful union, find like similarities, find symmetries, and then deploy those understandings in technological solutions that would circumvent the thing that we don't want. And it works well when it works. But when it doesn't work, then there's a diminishing returns here. Like, you need to understand, every time that you deploy science, you are basically finding regularity where previously there was a degree of freedom, and the degree of freedom which experience could utilize to make changes, like the changes that you perceive when you move from wakeful reality to a dream. And so it finds regularity there, and then it embeds it in technology, and then you have to abide by the rules of that technology. If you are using the technology, you have to abide by the rules that govern it. So these rules become take out the laws of the degrees of freedom through the technology that everyone uses. Like, for example, if you were playing a video game and everyone was playing like with a specific gun, then the rules of how that gun operates would affect all the players and would change their play style to accommodate for that. If they are dependent on that gun for whatever reason, then any variability that was prior will no longer be relevant. So what that means is that if you need experiential capacity to solve some problems, then science is actually making it impossible for experience to do that. And there are degrees by which this is like fine-tuning, but we need to understand, just like, for example, finding statistical models that don't provide any way of like actually interacting with it, but somehow cement the wakeful substrate to some kind of understanding that everyone now abides by, that, and it doesn't solve anything, for example, that is just zero return and pretty harmful for the survival of perhaps the entire your survival, or just the social order, or I don't know. It's like just diminishing returns.